Come a little closer and lend me your ears. Don't worry, you keep yours while I keep mine.
In each episode, we'll dig into the major stories, uncover the truth, and retrieve gems from Yada's blog.
We'll discuss what's right, bark about what's wrong, wag our tails at the thrill of discovery, and take you on adventures through the exciting world we live in today. So, fasten your curiosity leash and get ready.
Right then, coming to you with another episode of the Yada's Vlog on a Blog. Tomorrow's news, disseminated today. Let's dive in.
Oh, we are in luck. We have Roger B. with us along with Kevin, because we're going to begin today's story with a very deep dive. And the deep dive is, see that fellow with his face all blurred out? As it turns out, he is a special forces from Ukraine who operated under orders of none other than Zelensky to blow up the Nord Stream pipeline. And they've got him absolutely dead. Roger, you're a perfect guy to comment on this. We're going to get to the dive requirements in a moment, and you have a lot of experience at this depth and know a lot about it. So you can report in on what we have subsequently found. But what this means, ladies and gentlemen, is two things that are really, really important. One is that the entire war, this proxy war against Russia, is a setup. And this occurred before the war began, and it was the Ukraine government that orchestrated the destruction of the Nord 2 pipeline, which would have been able to provide inexpensive energy to Europe and keep that continent's economies going, and to promote this myth that it was Russia that was the aggressor, as opposed to the truth, which is that the United States using Ukraine as a proxy. Zelensky was the one who gave the order to blow up the pipeline. Now, that also means that not only is Zelensky willing to lie, because he has repeatedly and continues to blame the Russians for doing this when he, in fact, did it. So you can't trust anything that comes out of the man's mouth, which should have been obvious to everyone. Also, that the first act of war, this is a criminal act of war. It's a war crime, that the war was initiated not by Russia, but by Ukraine, and that changes everything. And next, it means that the grand liberal poobah of journalism, Seymour Hersh, was wrong. He got played when he claimed it was Joe Biden who authorized this in American special forces. He got played. So that's pretty embarrassing for him. And it's also exceedingly embarrassing for Europe. What in the hell are they going to do now that they have cast this false scenario that Russia was the aggressor when the war was started by Ukraine? Their economies were tanked by Ukraine, and subsequently they've been getting billions of dollars to further destroy their economies while putting themselves at the precipice of world war against Russia, which was instigated by Ukraine. How do you deal with that? Now, if you're Europe,
right?
And oh, by the way, this bum there on the cover that was all fuzzied out, they call him K. We'll go and reveal his full identity, but he was an armed participant in the regime change operations that were deliberately sponsored by and attended by, armed by the United States to overthrow the pro-Russian government in Kiev of Ukraine. He was an armed participant in them. It even undermines this peaceful notion of a popular uprising, yes, to throw off a tyrannical government. It's all a lie. Everybody's been lied to. Can people finally get out of their stupor and realize the entire Ukraine war is a United States operation at regime change to go kill some Ruskies so they can control Russian assets, and that every aspect of this war as it is presented by everybody in power in the United States and the journalistic community, is rubbish. Let's read the account, because this is just delicious. A Ukrainian soldier has been charged in relation to the explosions which crippled the Nord Stream gas pipeline in the Baltic Sea in 2022, before the Ukraine-Russian war began. German federal prosecutors have filed charges against the Ukrainian Serhiy Zushnitsov, who is just known as SK. He was detained in Italy on a German arrest warrant in August 2025 and extradited. That was a year ago. They have known for certain that it was a Ukrainian operation that took out the Nord Stream pipeline, that was a war crime that initiated the Ukraine-Russian war. They've known it for a year. You might say, well, you just read this was a nothing but a arrest warrant, and charges have been filed. Wait till you hear what the evidence is before you go there. 50-year-old Ukrainian soldier from Kiev is accused of leading a team, and some say it's 5 besides himself, some say 6, some say 7. But let's say 7 accomplices in the operation which destroyed 3 of 4 key Nord Stream gas pipelines in the Baltic Sea in September 2022 on orders of Vladimir Zelensky. The pipelines, of course, transported Russian gas to Europe, and because of Biden wanting to sanction Russia for a war that the United States instigated, they were sanctioned, and therefore there was no gas in the pipelines at that moment. Serhiy Zushnitskov is accused of attacking civil energy infrastructure, which is a war crime under the International Convention, as well as causing an explosion and destroying infrastructure. Well, Donald, he's going to serve some time in jail if he's ever tried, because that's what he has done. According to reports, investigators discovered that Serhiy K. led the sabotage team and was in command of the sailing yacht Andromeda, which the attack was carried out. Investigators reportedly discovered traces of the military explosive HMX and RDX on Andromeda. Oh, that's pretty indicting, isn't it? And at that depth, HDMX is probably the weapon of choice. Of Serhiy Zushnitsov's 7 alleged accomplices, one has already died, having been killed during the war in Ukraine. The evidence against the defendant is reportedly overwhelming. For instance, SK is alleged to have incriminated himself in an intercepted phone call made while in custody in Italy, pending extradition. I did it. But don't let me go to that Germany. They're going to be mad at me for having done it, because that destroyed their economy. And now the economy of an entire country is ruined because of what I did. Don't send me to Germany because of what I've done. You know, Ukrainians are evil. I mean, it's just the fact is, if you trace Ukraine's tendency to abuse Jews, was far worse than Germany, far worse than the Nazis. You trace their belligerence and graft, which I've done for 25 years. They're really scum. This is a country where I'm not going to say every person is scum. I'm just going to tell you that it has the scummiest reputation of any country in Europe. And this fellow is a great example of it. According to the findings, SK and his accomplice, a skipper, an explosives expert, and 4 deep sea divers, boarded the Andromeda in the port of Wiek in the German island of Rugen no later than September 8th of 2022. The vessel had been chartered for several weeks by a Ukrainian company. And guess whose fingerprints are on the documents for that charter? Old
Sergey.
The team reportedly, that's not something I know in the journalistic world, they like to say reportedly. This is not reportedly. The team attached 4 explosive devices equipped with time-delayed fuses to the gas pipeline on the seabed near the Danish town of Bornholm at depths up to 80 meters. 80 meters, 262 feet. My math is correct. That's in salt water. That's about 8 atmospheres. Would that be correct, my good friend Roger and deep sea hard hat diver?
Well, an atmosphere is 33 feet. So
32 feet and salt water, 33 feet in fresh water, what they say,
right,
correct?
Right. Pretty close, yeah. That's a good rough rule.
Okay. The indication is that they were using trimix, and while trimix is a mix of helium, nitrogen, and oxygen, you actually think that at that depth, to have any bottom time, they would have actually changed. They would have had to have 2 blends of gases, and they would have had to change gases on the way down.
It's possible. It depends on what kind of equipment they were using. If they were using rebreathers, they would certainly have to switch gases. If they were using just cylinders, they could just switch cylinders. But yeah, at that depth, you can't breathe air. The oxygen in the air would kill you through pulmonary O2 toxicity, and the nitrogen would cause nitrogen narcosis, and you die from that. So you have to have a totally different breathing gas mixture at that depth. And at that depth, as you come up in the water column, the depth gas is toxic going back up to the surface gas.
So you really have to know what you're doing. You have to not only have multiple cylinders where some of those cylinders are one mix and the other cylinders are a different mix, because if you use the one mix all the way down, the mix that would work for you and keep you alive at the bottom would kill you near the surface.
Correct.
And vice versa.
That's correct. Now, when you said deep sea divers, they hired. Now, deep sea divers, in a kind of colloquial sense, means umbilical divers, which means they're attached to the surface with an umbilical, and the surface crew does all that switching around when you get to the depth.
Right.
Because they know how deep you are, so they have to go switching the number 2 mix, switching back. So it depends on if they were solo diving with an umbilical or without an umbilical. If they were
they were on. This was a sailing yacht, the Andromeda. So the likelihood of the sailing yacht having surface gear to do all that, I would think, would be less likely than they went down with rebreathers or with cylinders.
Right. The amount of space required. So the depth of the water, you have to have at least 2 times the depth of water and length of hose, because you're going to get a belly in the hose from the current. So 2 to 3 times. So they would have had to have maybe a 600 or 700 foot umbilical, and maybe 2 of them. Take up the whole deck.
Well, and there's 4 divers.
Well, I doubt. I really think 1 or 2 per dive was down at any one given time. I don't think they had all 4 down. It's just not to me. It's not feasible on that size of a boat. It's too much going on.
Okay.
You need to do it in stages. In my view, now they might have all done it. It's gone down all one dive and got it done, but
with an umbilical, that would be almost impossible if they were using an umbilical. It might have been possible if they're on cylinders.
Well, obviously it was possible because they did it, but it would have taken a lot of planning and some practice, and the guys that did it would have to be very, very highly trained. It doesn't take much of a mistake at that depth.
Oh, you had to be dead to be dead. Yeah. So this is not a casual operation. SK, as a special operations team member, he is not going to have the resources to put together a team of these individuals of this kind of specific training and all the gear that they're going to need, plus to charter a yacht of this size without considerable support.
Oh, absolutely. Financially,
Yes.
yeah, and being able to get all the personnel together, the exact right people to form the team, and then to not just carry it out. I mean, keep it quiet.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean,
To pay a qualified diver for it would have to be about a week's time to conduct a dive at this depth. And then to tell such diver that what you're going to do is work with high explosives, and you're going to attach them to a pipeline, which is a war crime. And then you're going to have to keep quiet about what you have done. What kind of do-re-mi would you have to incentivize a diver like that with?
Oh, it's. I don't even think it's money. It's got to be motivation. There has to be that personal pride of fight for my country motivation.
But there's
Nobody
not that
does
many.
that for money.
But there's not that many Ukrainians with is essentially a rump state. We're going to be a rump state without Odessa. Essentially a landlocked country, soon to be, that are going to have that kind of expertise. I mean,
That's true.
I wouldn't go to Ukraine to find that kind of expertise. That you're going to
Right.
go to another country where that kind of expertise and that kind of training would be possible. I don't think they have schools to teach people how to do this in the Ukraine.
No,
What do you think,
but
Roger?
they do in Norway. Norway is a big diving
Yeah.
hub for the North
Yep.
Sea oil industry out there.
Yep.
There's thousands of divers in Norway, and a lot of them will probably be lining up to get that job. So ex-military, Norwegian military, commercial divers, deep sea divers, if you will. But yeah, he obviously got the people. I want to know who the four were. What nationality were they? Were they fellow Ukrainians or were they Norwegians?
So you're actually thinking that the answer, because, and I've read the same thing, that dive schools that would teach somebody how to do this exist in Norway,
Yes.
and that they would have no problem taking an enrollment. So this is obviously a very well bankrolled expedition, and so a government provides the tuition and the transportation. And the soldier, they're going to train them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Correct.
So it's just a matter of money.
And that's correct. And if you were to hire a commercial diving company to come out and say they were going to service those pipelines for some reason, take photographs or measurements or whatever they're going to do, that's $100,000 a day charge to do that for a two-man crew with two support people.
Really?
100 grand a day. Yeah.
100 grand a day. And this was a almost a week operation, and it was twice that.
Yeah.
So $200,000 a day times, let's call it 6 days.
Yeah. Yeah. And the equipment's expensive. It's not cheap stuff. And, with the outfit, one diver might be 40 or 50 grand. Yeah. If you're using rebreathers, they're about 25, 30 grand each. Then you got all the accessory stuff that's got to go with it. It's a big deal operation for sure.
Yep. Okay. So the team attached the explosive devices, 80 meters, 262 feet. According to the details provided, the devices consisted of high-performance military-grade HMX explosives, which are specifically designed to work at those depths. That's a tough environment to work in, even for standard explosives. And they were capable of massive destruction and designed to detonate at these depths, which they did on September 26, 2022, starting the Ukraine-Russian war. Boy, they got that wrong, didn't they? Forensic analysis found traces of the military-grade explosive HMX on a table in the yacht salon.
Oops.
Nothing to see here.
Nothing to see here. I've done a lot of yachting in my life. I've came here on an 82-foot horizon, and at no time did I have any HMX on my dining table.
Right. It doesn't accidentally show up on. Yeah. It
No.
wasn't a poppy seed bagel. No.
No. This was in the salon, so this was in the living room of the yacht. Coffee table book, seashells, a glass of wine, or
High explosives.
or HMX, which is your preference today. DNA and fingerprints. They found Sergei Zhutnitsov's DNA was on a glass in the yacht salon. I got HMX on in the salon. I've got his DNA on a glass in the salon. Do you think they got him?
I don't think they thought that through very well.
Oh my goodness! And again, it goes right back to Ukraine. America is using Ukraine as cannon fodder to go attack Russians, and they picked people that are like to do this kind of thing and are really shitty at it. I mean, they'll do it, but it's like this guy. What a clown! So his DNA was found in a glass on the salon, and his fingerprints were discovered on the rental agreement for the yacht. I want to rent your yacht, and September is a really crappy time in the Baltic Sea. So I know it's not booked, but I want to rent your yacht, and I'm going to celebrate with a little high explosives and nothing to see here. Okay. Fingerprints was on the rental agreement. Prosecutors allege that he had a 5-person team, 6 total as opposed to 7 total. That's the only discrepancy, and maybe the one is the one that's already dead. State orders. The indictment states that the group acted on the orders of state authorities in Ukraine. While they did not name the specific leaders in the initial charges, a Wall Street Journal report citing U.S. intelligence claimed that the operation was initially approved by President Vladimir Zelensky. Amazing, huh? The little cokehead
I tell you what,
fired the first shot in the war.
He's come a long way from his piano playing days, for sure.
Oh, the clown and all of his little circus act. I mean, he was really a 2-bit entertainer, really crappy entertainer, and a doofus. And now he is a coke snorting doofus that cost the world 2 million lives.
Yeah. He's absolutely vicious, for sure.
Yep. The suspects used fake passports, some bearing names of Ukrainian nationals, to travel and rent the vessel. Ukrainian government, of course, denies all involvement, calling the accusations a Russian fake. So just anytime you read anything that is claimed by Ukraine, toss it away. By the way, it was my wife who came to my office.
This is a German investigation, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, Germany is investigating it. Okay, and it's a Russian
and
fake?
Germany is where the gas was coming, and it was Germany's economy was booming because of inexpensive Russian-supplied gas, which was denied by Biden on dictates by Biden, and then blown up by the Ukraine, so that subsequently Germany's economy has completely imploded. Even their major automobile companies, like Porsche, is just gone. I mean, gone. Mercedes-Benz is almost done. Yeah. They have destroyed their economy over this. I mean, this in Germany ought to be like a shot to the heart. I mean, their economy has been destroyed over a lie that Russia initiated the Ukraine war when it was a Ukrainian that initiated that war, and that Germany's economy was tanked in the process.
Yeah. Right.
I mean, this is such a cold shower to anybody who has bought into bad Putin.
Right. Yeah, I just
Great.
don't understand how he can say it's a Russian fake. It's fake Russian propaganda, right?
Yeah, that
When
Russia's going to
it's
blow up their own
literally
pipeline. Yeah, they're going to
yeah.
blow up their own pipeline. Yeah, okay.
Mhm.
I mean, but people buy this stuff. I mean, 80% of Americans, when last polled, think that Russia was the aggressor, even when the entire evidence is so overwhelming that this was the United States plot going back 20 years to rent Ukraine, to attack Russia, to claim Russia's mineral rights.
Yeah.
Okay. Sergei Kuznetsov, also known as Sergei K, because Kuznetsov is hard to pronounce, also called Zorky. I like Zorky.
Mhm.
Well, we'll call him Zorky. It says he's a 49-year-old Ukrainian as opposed to 50. He is a military officer and he is an intelligence operative. Born in 1976 to a military family, Sorky grew up in Zhortmir. He has a military education. His entire family was military. He entered the military academy there, which was the last of the Soviet recruitment centers in the Ukraine. He attended the Institute for Personal Training in the Security Service. Special, this is all spy stuff of the Ukraine. An institute that taught him foreign languages and international law. So he's going to know all about the fact that blowing up energy infrastructure is a war crime. He served as a student group commander alongside a fellow named Roman Chervinsky. Roman Chervinsky became his commanding officer. And he is, by all reports, the mastermind behind the Nord Stream operation, the one who got Zelensky to approve it. He was an active participant in the 2004 Orange Revolution and the 2014 Revolution of Dignity, where he took up arms, and the final ouster of President Yanukovych. Following his father's death in 2004, he adopted the strict vegan lifestyle, so he's a purist. That Revolution of Dignity in 2004 was funded by the United States. It was inspired by the United States. The CIA wanted regime change because they wanted the IMF to be supplying the loans because Ukraine doesn't function on its own. And they wanted to replace Russia. They wanted to control Ukraine. And this goes all the way back to George W. Bush, as they said, we're going to force Ukraine to become part of NATO and destabilize Russia as a result of this. And this revolution, which is pictured in the West as peaceful people and those revolution of dignity, no, they were armed by the CIA. It's the same thing as the rebels in Iran. When they say the peaceful protests in Iran, they were armed, and they were armed by the CIA of the United States. And at the time this was happening, you had the undersecretary of the U.S. State Department on phone calls talking about how they were going to replace that government. You had John McCain there with champagne glasses overlooking the riots and celebrating them. And the Russians even published the conversations between the U.S. State Department officers and bragging about how they were overthrowing the popularly elected Ukrainian government. That's this revolution of dignity. I'm sure the CIA came up with that name. This was a CIA op at regime change that caused the lives 2 million people to be snuffed out and destroyed. It's going to end up destroying Europe and certainly going to destroy Ukraine. And he was part of that, wrapped up in all of it. Military service began during the Russian-Ukrainian war in 2022, February of 2022. He rejoined the military. He initially served in air defense unit defending Kiev before transferring to the Special Operations Forces. He was a spook. Commanded a command in the spring of 2022. He served as captain in the unit. That's a fairly decent rank. Captain in the Navy would be exceedingly high, and a captain in the in the Army is a middle rank. So it depends on what their rank system is as to whether or not that's very high rank or middle. But definitely an officer. So, Seymour Myron Cy Hirsch of the New York Times, you got played. You were wrong.
Makes you wonder who he's actually writing for.
Yeah.
Because everybody respects him.
Yeah.
So let's...
You got that one wrong, man. That was his big claim, that it was Joe Biden that had done this and U.S. Operatives that carried it out. And no, it wasn't that at all. It was Vladimir Zelensky. The first shot in the Russian-Ukraine war was not fired by the Russians. It was fired by the Ukrainians.
What I find interesting about this, well, first of all, it's a German investigation, okay, which tracks. This is a rented boat, and we're just now. This guy was just arrested, right? So this
no, a year ago. He was arrested a year ago.
A year ago, which still puts us in 2025.
Yes, he was. The Germans found out that he did this. The Germans knew that he had done it over a year ago, and he had gone to Italy, and so over a year ago, it was the Germans that had the Italians arrest him. He was in Italy.
Okay.
So they've known this for over a year, which also tells you that in the Baltic states, they conducted their investigation and then they didn't reveal what they had learned. So they all this publicity, we're having this big investigation on the destruction of the Nord Stream pipeline, and then they didn't disclose what they found. Well, yeah, because the Balkan states want Europe to engage in a war to pound Russia. And so they didn't want this out. But the Germans said, yeah, you ruined our economy.
Yeah, that's what my point was, that lots of people have known this evidence for a very long time.
Yes, they have.
Because this is a rented boat that right? And we find
including
HDX
the United States. The United States, every Trump has to know this. I mean, Trump's pretty stupid.
Yes.
The people in his administration know it. Biden knew it.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So the United States knew it and lied.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. 100%.
Ukraine knew it and lied. The Balkan states knew it and lied. And because of this investigation, so did the head of every European country. They knew it and lied. Mertz, you are done, pal. You are just done. Goodbye.
They secured this evidence within days of the Nord Stream pipeline of the explosion. They had to have secured this evidence within days because
otherwise right. That's true. So that means that to have his DNA on the glass, to have his DNA and fingerprints on the rental document, to find the TMX explosives on the salon table. There is no chance that there was any lag time between the September 2022 blast and the subsequent finding of all of this evidence. They knew it. They knew it immediately afterwards, and have funded a war that has killed 2 million people as a result of perpetuating a lie.
Right.
That ought to take, if you were, Donald Trump should be impeached over this. Joe Biden should also be arrested, even though he's senile, and there should be consequences for this. U.S. High Military Command, same exact situation. Zelensky should be done. The war should be over. Apologize to the Russians. Build back the damn pipeline. End the war. Stop fueling the Ukraine. Disband the CIA for starting this whole mess. And everybody just come clean and apologize. And they have known it for 4 years.
Yeah, absolutely. I just curious with this coming out now. A few days ago, there was a Ukrainian billionaire that was attacked in Monaco. Monaco's first so-called terrorist attack ever. Someone left a Monaco, right? I mean, this is a nice place. Someone left a backpack bomb on this Ukrainian billionaires who had fled Ukraine. He was a real estate guy, Aleph, real estate holdings or whatever, but definitely someone would had the means to launder the funds from a state operator to a non-state operator.
When it's the president of the country that is approving it, and his special forces that are carrying it out. You don't even need to, at that point, there's no purpose in laundering. You don't need to launder at that point.
Right.
But yeah, Monte Carlo has become the hangout for the Ukrainians who have been standard Ukrainians with all manner of graft. About 30% of the money that Europe and the United States gives to Ukraine to go kill Russians is stolen. And it's invested all over Europe and particularly in places like United Arab Emirates and Qatar and places like that. And they're driving around in multi-million-dollar cars and living in multi-million-dollar penthouses and multi-million-dollar yachts. This whole thing has funded a lot of cocaine, a lot of yachts, a lot of fancy cars, a lot of villas around the world. Zelensky included. The whole West has been played for a fool by this.
Oh yeah.
It's a shakedown operation for sure. I saw the same article. I think they mentioned in there that the attack was planned and directed by Ukraine. Zelensky wanted the guy dead.
Oh, really?
The Monaco.
Wow.
Yeah. Okay. I hadn't heard that.
Yeah. Well, what happened in the Ukraine, I think it's within the last week, is that there were 7 very high-ranking Ukrainian military officers, general flag officers, and other government officials who were executed by Zelensky because they tried to assassinate him. This was the same coup that insiders tried to assassinate Adolf Hitler. Same exact thing. They realized Zelensky is so destructive to Ukraine, and Ukraine's going to be destroyed because of him. So they did everything they could to kill him. And his response to those who tried to assassinate him is the same as Hitler. He's rounded up everybody and blew their brains out. No trials, just immediate execution. We're really dealing with scum here.
Yes.
Those places when I was all people flying the Ukrainian flag and go Ukraine, and we support Ukraine. I said, go to hell. I mean, Ukraine is scummy, has been going back 4 or 5 centuries. And it is the worst in terms of anti-Semitism and carrying out torturous events, throwing little babies against walls in front of parents to crush their skulls and in killing thousands of people at a time. It was the worst massacres during the Holocaust, and the Ukrainians themselves carried them out. And it was it's just a hideous country. That's why Putin doesn't want any part of it. He wants to protect the ethnic Russians in the east and in the south. And he wants no part of Kiev and no part of the rest. He can't stand them. He hates them, and he knows them. And the rest of the world should take the same approach to them.
It is the disease that affects Israel today comes from Ukraine, the Haredi.
That is correct. The Haredi religion is from the 16th century. Baal Shem Tov, the Lord of the Good Name, piece of crap that created a religion based upon blending the Zohar and Kabbalah into the Talmud, and he destroyed the lives of millions of people and will ultimately play a major role in destroying Israel. And it was conceived in the Ukraine. Yeah, Judaism as it's practiced today, and particularly in Israel, is a very modern religion conceived in Ukraine. So those
Yeah,
who think that Judaism is this practice in Israel by the Haredi, which is the only really recognized form of Judaism in Israel. Reform outweighs the ultra-Orthodox United States, but those guys with the black hats and the weasel hats and the morning suits and all that sort of thing that are protesting against having to defend their country and the IDF, that is a religion that does not go back very far. Its roots are in Ukraine a few hundred years ago.
I wonder if Putin's been able to, through probably not directly but indirectly, disrupt the flow of weasel hats out of Ukraine.
I would encourage that. Yeah. I can tell you those that and Leah gets upset with me sometimes when I say this, but I'm going to say it anyway. And by the way, I credit Leah. She was the one who brought me this story. And my first response was, nah, I read that Seymour Hersh article, started following Seymour Hersh again after his Malai books. And he was, when he accuses somebody who is of his political persuasion, and he's a Marxist, then you have a pretty good indication, as much as he loved Biden, because Biden was so liberal, that he would not have reported all of these insiders to carry that story. So I said, nah, I just don't think it could have been it. And I know my other issue is that Ukraine is essentially a rump state, and this was much too difficult a dive to have been done by amateurs. It sounds like a military operation and really highly trained operatives and a ton of money in this particular case. But the CIA was funding Ukraine tons of money, and they would have had their special services team trained in Norway, and they rented a boat and got her done. So the reports are right. I mean, the evidence here is overwhelming.
And this almost seems like for lack of a better term, olive branch to Russia, as far as Germany saying, hey, look, and we're releasing this information, not keeping it silent, so that our public can know, and that we can start forming this gradual public opinion against this Ukrainian war. Hey, we were all fooled. Ukrainians bad. Let's just close up shop and let Russia, and
well,
leave,
the trouble with
Ukraine
that, of course,
alone.
is that Merz has been the worst of the trilateral heads of Europe, calling for a European war against Russia. So that works against that. The second part is that you would think it would be an olive branch in the sense that there was the assassination attempt on Zelensky this week, and this is enough to call Ukrainians, any decent Ukrainian at this point, has got to say, oh, what scum we are. We started this war. And it completely undermines any argument of Russia started the war. No, the war was started by Ukraine, but instigated by the U.S. And this particular guy was armed as a participant in the revolution that was funded by the U.S. State Department and CIA. So the cat's out of the bag, man. Deal with this reality. Stop this damn war. Stop supporting Ukraine, and bring it to a close before Russia nukes Kiev and then begins to nuke Europe. You lied, and the fact that they have known for all of this time and continued to lie against Russia. What does it say about that the two blondes that blabber against Russia at the European Union head? It says that they're all just lying scumbags. Merch, this has to be the end of him. Has to be the end of Zelensky.
You'd think.
Has to be the end of Macron. All of them.
Yeah.
You can't deal with this any other way. The evidence is undeniable. It's Ukraine that started the Russian-Ukrainian war. And you've known it for 4 years, and you've lied about it. And 2 million people have died, and you bankrupt your economies.
It's a man.
It's a bitch here, man.
It's tough. The Nord Stream operation. looking at it from a broadly that I do sometimes, it was a sloppy operation, in
This
my view.
was, yes.
And an ordinary 2-bit household break-in-hours thief knows better than to leave fingerprints all over the place when he breaks in something. So I think they got lucky, and with it could have gone bad just as easily for them. He could have lost all the divers.
Yes.
But it succeeded, and that toppled over another domino.
Yeah, except they got caught immediately afterwards, and the world lied about it.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no chance when they got caught immediately after, which had to be because of the accumulation of this evidence.
Yeah.
There is no chance that the U.S. didn't know about it and that the heads of European states didn't know about it.
Absolutely.
With the amount of Russian activity that takes place in the Baltics, with the amount of the other navies that takes place in the Baltic Sea, right? You're telling me that they can't roll back satellite tape and see we know where the Nord Stream was blown up. Okay, we know what day it was. They can't roll back satellite tape and see what floating vessel was setting right on top of.
It was probably blown up. It was timed fuses, so it was blown up a week after they set the fuses, so they get out of Dodge. The Russians, though, have stated that it was a Ukrainian operation from the beginning, so they knew that this was the case. But the Russians were wise not to interfere with the collection of evidence, because they would have been accused of planting it.
Right.
Well, pipelines like that are in that shallow water like that, they're relatively easy to repair. Pipeline repair barges working around the world all the time. The fact that no repairs have even been attempted is Putin's kind of jab. Well, we're not going to fix it. You want to fix it yourself.
That's right.
So, yeah.
And part of it is that the United States is a bully. And the United States told Germany, you're going to ruin your economy over this, but you're going to obey us. And Germany capitulated and obeyed the United States and ruined their economy over it. That's the reason Germany didn't fix it.
Wonder if it's too late now. Too little, too late,
Oh, no, you can still fix it. But, when your country's leaders have lied about something as fundamental as that Russia instigated the Ukraine war, and you have every media outlet in the world parroting that stupidity, and the presidents of the United States and the military and every media outlet in the United States parroting the same lie, which is pervasive on social media, that Russia instigated this war. In fact, even if you fact check this, and I read probably 10 articles on it, everyone talks about Russia instigating the war. And what this proves is, no, they did not. Why can't people think? This war was started by a criminal act and a war crime by Ukraine, with the full knowledge now of the West and at the orders of Zelensky. And this guy that perpetrated it was one of the armed combatants, armed by the CIA in regime change, that instigated the war.
Yeah. I wonder if he'll ever see trial. I wonder if he'll ever have testimony in an open courtroom.
Oh, you think somebody will kill him?
I just find it interesting. They either have to pay him for him not to, and take care of him.
Lee Harvey Oswald come to mind?
Exactly. Something of that nature. Yeah, absolutely.
However, it doesn't change the fact, though, does it?
No, it doesn't change the facts.
It doesn't change the fact. The facts are now known.
Right.
These are not happenstance. These are not, oh, well, that's circumstantial.
Right.
No, there's no circumstantial evidence here. This boy was not ready for prime time. He was a Ukrainian.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Back to other lies.
Can we not watch this one? This
no, we're
girl
not going to watch it.
My
We're
head
just going
hurt.
to watch it.
Okay,
no,
she makes my head hurt.
But I just want to say. So she has these things. You can't trace back to Christ. Well, you know what the first thing on that list is? Christ. Christ. There isn't any evidence that there was a Christ. None. There is not a single historical record of any kind that a man God arrived on earth. Not one. And you'd say, oh, what about, Josephus? He wasn't even alive at the time. He hadn't even been born. And the oldest witness in the language that he wrote the history of the Jews dates to the 9th century. And on top of all of that, he was a traitor and he lied about everything, including Masada.
Right.
So no, you literally have nothing. And the books that you claim are eyewitness accounts, not a single one of them was an eyewitness. And there wasn't any one of them that was written within 2 generations of the events. And the first 2 that were written are part of Paul's posse, and Paul was just a criminal. He was a buffoon. Talk about sloppy. He never got a single quote right from the Torah and prophets to prove his religion. Everyone he butchered. He never once quoted his, guess who? Christ. Never once. The religion is an absolute ridiculous hoax that wouldn't fool a 5-year-old. So you want to list purgatory, indulgences, implicit faith, infant baptism, baptism, period. Merit, transubstantiation, the water becomes, or grape juice becomes blood, the bread becomes flesh. Prayer to Mary, there wasn't even a Mary. There was no Mary. The whole thing is a lie. So,
they took a historical.
Go ahead.
They took a historical event and turned it into this just horrible fairy tale.
Correct. There is a historical fulfillment by crucifixion of Passover in Jerusalem in 33 CE, which happens to be your 4,000 Yah. And there are eyewitness accounts of exactly what occurred, written 1,000 years before it occurred, that specifically describe the pain and death by crucifixion 600 years before crucifixion existed and 700 years before Rome existed. And it was written by Todd, the man who endured it, because it was written in first person. So the lie that is Christianity is so pathetic. And you don't think I'm being unfair to Christianity? Then you go to yadayah.com, read or listen to. Now you can listen to them. We have talking books that are real page turners. Go to the books, go down to Twistianity. There's 5 volumes. You can listen to them. You can read them. They're all for free at yadayah.com. And you read them. And then you send me a note. You can find out how to reach me on the site. You send me a note, and you can apologize if you're saying that's unfair. My Jesus, he's real. He was really God. Well, there was a God. God became a man, and men killed God. And then my God, he came back to life. Oh, what a bunch of nutcases. It's nothing but the product of identity theft. Mostly of David, who was the actual Messiah, chosen one, and king who actually fulfilled Pesach through crucifixion. And the rest of it is Dionysus.
Yep.
And
Amazing.
the author of the first 14 books and the one who inspired the next 3, Paul admitted to being demon possessed. He was a buffoon.
And there's a gap of many generations between the event and when the first accounts are scribed. It's not like somebody put pen to paper right after it happened. It took,
or that they were written by eyewitnesses, because they weren't.
Yeah, right.
They weren't. We have no idea who wrote the book of that's called Matthew. Not a clue, but we know it was written right around 100 CE, which is 65 years after the events played out, by someone who we have no idea who they are, and 100% of the book is plagiarized from 3 sources. And so it contributes nothing new other than we gain access to what the Ebonim had to say. That's the Olivet Discourse and the Sermon on the Mount. The rest of it is just copied from Luke and from Mark. And then Mark is just a really crappy job, and it was the first one, and Mark was part of Paul's posse. Luke then copied most of his gospel, which is Paul's term, came from Luke, and then he added a bunch of fairy tales of dancing fetuses and all kinds of other just unbelievably stupid fairy tales. The whole thing is rubbish, and it's exceedingly easy to disprove. And those books, the two first gospels, to use Paul's imaginary term, where he said, if there's a gospel from heaven and I have my gospel and they differ, then my gospel is right and heaven's gospel is wrong. So said the demon-possessed man. They were written 2 generations after the fact by non-eyewitnesses who weren't even in the country at the time. And Paul didn't invent Jesus until 52 CE. All right, so the book of Enoch. First of all, we have to be thankful for one thing. They got the name wrong. They got the name wrong. I'm glad they got the name wrong, because I really would be even more frustrated to have them. That's my name, Chinook. And I would be even more frustrated to have my name, Chinook, destroyed. It's, prepared and deployed is what Chinook means. Mm-hmm. I would hate to have that name besmirched. The book called Enoch was written in about the 4th century sometimes, and by an imposter, because Chinook, there's 2 Chinooks, first and second Chinook. First Chinook goes back almost 6,000 years, and second Chinook 5,400 years. And they did not write a book, and they most certainly wouldn't have written this book. This book is an absolute fairy tale. And the fact that it's cited in the book of Jude in the New Testament tells you that the New Testament is as deceitful as is the con job that is the book of Enoch. That's the problem of Revelation. The book that Revelation paraphrases the most is Ezekiel. And Ezekiel is as satanic as they come.
Yeah.
Isn't Enoch considered apocrypta?
Yes. Well, it depends. In the Roman Catholic Bible, it's part of the canonical books. So there's many Coptic and Orthodox denominations that consider it canonical, not apocryphal.
Yeah. I think it speaks of giants. Am I correct?
Oh yeah,
giants ruling the land.
And the Nephilim, who people want to attribute to giants, means exactly the opposite. It's from the verb nephal. It means the fallen.
Right.
There were no giants in the land, ever. The whole thing is just
it's
sloppy
easy
jobs of translating and then intermixing books like this that are rubbish.
Yep. It's easily dismissed, yeah, for sure.
Easily. Oh, that book is so easily disparaged and trashed. I think it's as easy, it's far easier to disparage and trash the book of Enoch than it was the book of Ezekiel. The book of Ezekiel actually has merit because it's clearly inspired by Satan. Every aspect of that book from beginning to end is satanic. And so to understand Satan's mindset has tremendous value. So I think we gained a lot by the 2 volumes I wrote disproving the book of Enoch, because we learned so much about Satan's motives and even about the Coppercon, Donald Trump, and his grandiose plans. That's all from the book of Enoch.
Ezekiel. Yeah, but it's also
the book of Ezekiel. I'm sorry.
Yeah. But it's being part of the Babel series. It's what so many of the rabbis want to hang their hat on,
Correct,
anything.
They love the Valley of the Dry Bones, and they love the new temple because they want a new temple, so they love a new temple. They like changing all of the 7 Moed Mikra are all changed. One of them is maintained, but with an entirely different purpose, and the others are either corrupted or replaced. I mean, there's a do nothing day. The rabbis love that. There's a new moon day. There's an All Fools Day. It just so rabbinical that it was fun to trash it. Esther, by the way, is the other book that the rabbis love, and
Yeah.
there is no correlation between reality and the book of Esther. It's also historical gibberish. All right, so he wants to know: is it wrong to disobey God's diet laws? Well, I'm gonna go in and eat some baby back ribs. Well, so how many laws does God have regarding? Well, let's just start with anything.
Zero.
Yeah. Does Torah mean law?
Nope.
No.
It's teaching and guidance, doesn't it? And so how many dietary laws are there?
None. Well,
None. All right. So God talks about food in 3 different places. And one of those places, Moshe comes right out. Now, Moshe would be an inspired spokesperson from God, pretty assuredly, wouldn't you say? In fact, if Moshe is not an inspired person from God, then you can't have any of this, can you?
Nope.
Got to throw it all away. There is no Torah without Moshe. So if Moshe says it, it has to be as valid as anything else in the Torah, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So doesn't Moshe go on and on and on to say, you can eat whatever you want?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
He just says, I only have one, God's got one hard, fast rule. You can eat whatever you want, whatever your heart's desire, whatever you think is good. You can eat it, clean or unclean. You go ahead and eat it. Only got one rule. What's the one
blood.
rule? No blood.
No blood.
Which makes the Roman Catholic Eucharist look like in regular Christian communion. And Jesus, this is my body broken for you, and this is the blood spilled for you. It makes it look really stupid and pagan, doesn't it? The guy says, don't do that.
It's satanic, yes.
Yeah, it's satanic. Don't do that. He says, don't drink the blood. Why? Because blood is, he says, is sacrificed to save your soul. Pesach and Towrah, the lamb and the bull. That's the message there. But he says, eat whatever you want. Then when he goes to the 2 places where he says, this is good for you, this is not good for you. I've lost the stream on one of these computers. I don't know what the deal is. Oh, it came back. This is good for you, this is not good for you. What he's talking about there is, this is healthy for you to eat. Mm-hmm. This is not healthy for you to eat, but you can eat whatever you want. And from that time that was revealed, which would have been 3,440 years ago, until about 50 years ago, everything that he said, you shouldn't eat this, this is not healthy for you, was not healthy. The sea creatures, waterborne creatures, they said don't eat. They're cleaner fish, cleaner crustaceans. That means they're the garbage disposals of the oceans and of lakes and of rivers. And
that stuff still carries warning labels for pregnant women. All of this stuff still carries warning labels for pregnant women today.
Right. Mm-hmm. And there's about 8 serious diseases that are passed on and have been from a pork, because a pig will eat anything and their stomachs don't work properly to digest it. So everything that God said was 3,400 years ahead of its time in terms of knowledge that these things are not healthy for you to eat, and until quite recently unsafe for you to eat, and then now in the last 50 to 100 years with far better processing of food and refrigeration and that sort of thing, and testing, you can eat them safely. So you can eat whatever you want now. And you got very clear, I don't want you to make a religion of food. The kosher laws have nothing to do with the Torah. The kosher laws are purely rabbinical, and they're control and money-making schemes. So there you go, pal. I can answer your question.
Right. Oh, this guy wanted to go all the way back to the garden for his proof, right? About God gave Adam and he, of course, he says Eve. He has no idea who Towrah is, right?
Right.
One law. All they had was one law. You know what?
They didn't have a law. It wasn't even a law, because God said you can eat from whatever you want. Mm-hmm. You can eat whatever you want. He just says if you eat from continue to make a practice of eating from the tree of knowledge, in that day you're going to die. Mm-hmm. And within that allotted period from a a day pursuant to the Torah, Adam did, and Chawah died much before that. And so, in fact, it was, I think, within a matter of 40 years of 1,000, he did. And even with Yahowah, the instruction was given in the imperfect, which is make a habit of it. So he could have munched down on the fruit of the tree of knowledge and just set it down, and Yahowah wouldn't have given a hoot about it. Just stop. But no, there was no law. You're wrong. But, such is the truth. Case with everybody who professes religion. And so you don't have a Torah class there, Mr. Merritt Island, Florida. You're just making a fool of yourself, and you're embarrassing yourself, and you ought not do that. You don't know what you're talking about. I can tell you the first part, though. I can tell you the first part. The first 3 words he got right. It is wrong.
It is wrong. It is wrong. That's right. Period. Thank you for my speaking fee. I'll be going now.
Yeah, I'll be going now. It is wrong.
They do make a good filter, though, for the religious. This is a great filter.
Oh, I like it because a bunch of the women in that Mother Goddess cult, they have really gone out of their way to attack me based upon my conclusion, based upon translating the words of Yahowah accurately, that you can eat whatever you want. And they hate that. They much prefer to be religious and play by their rabbinical rules. And I've translated what God said. I'm going to go where the words lead. He says you can eat whatever you want. And he only listed foods that were not good for you and foods that are good for you. And that was true until about 50 years ago, where now you can eat anything you want and it's not going to be a problem.
I was in the grocery store a while back, and I turned down an aisle, and in a cart ahead of me a little bit, there was a Hasidic Jew man. He had all garb on. It's full garb, black suit, hat, everything. It looked like he was in his late 70s or 80s. And he was pushing the cart along. He was twitching. His legs would twitch. His body would twitch. His head would twitch back and forth. His arms would go like that, like that. I'm like, is this guy having a stroke, or is this some kind of ritual? I don't know. It was something.
Yeah, my view is, and that's what I said, Larry gets mad at me when I say this, but the people that creep me out the most, if I were, I have a more disgusted reaction to seeing Haredi men dressed in their, whether it's their weasel hats or their black hats and their morning suits and their little curly cues and their boxes on their heads and on their arms and all of this kind of thing. I'm more repulsed by them, and I think they were a greater threat to Israel than anyone else. I'm disgusted by a woman in a hijab. I'm disgusted by a Muslim man. I know the nature of that religion. I know why everybody should be disgusted by all associations with Islam based upon what the Quran actually says and who Allah was and who Muhammad was. And it is repulsive to me. If I see a woman in a hijab, I will always look the other way, and I will snicker, because to play religious dress up to a man who is a pedophile and a rapist seems like a really bad idea to me. It's just that of all the religious dress up, and I'm disgusted by the Roman Catholics, the popes and the cardinals and the priests and all that sort of thing. But I don't think there's anybody as negative, as wrong as the rabbis of the Haredi cult or of just Orthodox Rabbinic Judaism. And the rabbis are really the cause of the cult of Christianity and the conspiratorial cult of Islam. They created all 3 religions.
Just you talking about that just brought a thought to me. I have never seen, you never see video evidence of Haredi women. Do they exist? Anytime you see Haredi, it's always the men out doing something, marching, protest, or even in the minions, and when they're dancing together, inside their yeshiva, and you never see. Yeah, you never see.
One of the ways you can always tell how evil a religion is to how subjugated and oppressed women are. And, a Haredi man will begin his day saying, thank God I'm not a woman.
Right.
It's a very oppressive. Women are ostracized. They're segregated. They're a woman, a Haredi woman, in fact, an Israeli woman, can't even get a divorce with her man's approval. There's a reason that Islam's scriptures became so misogynist. That's because that huge portions of the Quran came from the Talmud, and rabbis in the Talmud are misogynist. And so, they created this mess, and it's a shame what they've done to women. Shame what they've done to their children. God, that was God's condemnation. He said, you've corrupted your sons to the third and fourth generation. And typically when he says sons, he means children. So you've corrupted your sons and daughters to the third and fourth generation. Perpetually.
There was
but they do
YouTube
exist.
They do
Haredi
exist.
women do exist. Okay.
That's
okay.
why without Haredi women, there wouldn't be Haredi babies. So they exist. They just have to stay in the house, and they can never be seen.
There's a
they
YouTube
dance with
video.
other men. In fact, they can't even. And if a Haredi does want to join and somehow participate in the IDF, which is a really bad idea because they're not educated. They're not schooled in math. They're not schooled in language. They're not schooled in history. They're not schooled in rhetoric. They can't think. And their special diet and their special clothing and their special everything and their special prayers, they're just a waste of humanity. They're parasites. But they cannot even be in a crew that, like a tank crew that has a woman in it. They cannot be in proximity of a woman. And so they're having to say, you've got to have tank crews if you're going to have Haredi that have no women. You've got to commit to there'll be no songs. You have to commit to the special diet. You have to commit that there'll be no women in any company that's anywhere close to a Haredi man. Wow. In Islam, it says that a woman is filthier than dirt. If you touch a woman, you must go and take a dirt bath. So a woman is filthier than dirt in Islam. And same with the Haredi.
I can remember a while back, I saw a video about a Haredi woman, how to make bread. And she was bald.
Yeah,
completely bald.
100% of Haredi women, when they're married, have to shave their head. And it's because, the hair is kind of the crown of a woman. And they, just to demean them, they force them to shave their heads. Yeah. And then they have to dress up in virtual tents. So this is a fellow who's not very bright, but he is brighter than the host. It's Tim Dillon.
That don't take much.
Yeah, that doesn't take much. I mean, this is Joe Rogan and Tim Dillon. That's the picture that they have on the front. It's monkey see, monkey do. Joe Rogan is just a very odd duck. He is. If you try to listen to him, he is clearly not a very bright man. He's not well read. He's not well spoken. And so what he does is he tantalizes his audience by conspiracy. And his favorite conspiracy now is blame the Jews. And it's because he doesn't want to be blamed for anything. He's doesn't have the force of personality, for example, of an Alex Jones that will spew his own conspiracies. What he does is he has somebody sit in the other chair and he lets the person in the other chair talk, and then he might chime in on occasion. And that's what this one is. This is a whole diatribe where Joe Rogan does his thing and he introduces Jews in a negative way of saying that, prior to 10/7, I didn't know that Jews controlled America. And what 10/7 has to do with Jews controlling America, only Joe could tell you. But after the betrayal of Israel, and this is the thing that is so frustrating with the world. Just as I said, what we've just learned about the Nord Stream pipeline, and that the Ukrainians committed a war crime and began the war long before the Russians invaded. That's not going to change the mindset of a world that you now have to be willfully ignorant and willfully irrational to hold the view that Russia was wrong in this war and that Ukraine is defending democracy. The same thing is true with what just happened with the Memorandum of Understanding, where Donald Trump checkmated and betrayed Israel. And Israel had no say in what was negotiated and was betrayed in what was negotiated. At that point, the argument that Israel is controlling Trump is over. Mm-hmm. And if you think otherwise, then you're just ignorant and irrational. And here's Joe Rogan on a recent program promoting this lie. And it just shows that they are not thinking. And he has this clownish guy that weaves this story that plays into the mythos of the vast majority of people on social media who have miserable lives and are looking for someone else to blame. Now, this particular fellow takes a "I'm holier than thou" attitude, and he says, I'm not among the others. And he doesn't use conspiracy, but he says, I'm not like the others who play the victim card. I hate it when people play the victim card. Conspiracy is all the victim card. That is what conspiracy is. It's I've been victimized. My life is miserable. And it's because of these other people who have made my life miserable. And it's typically blaming the Jews for making somebody's life miserable. That's the victim card. He says, I don't go along with that victim card. But then he goes and talks about how he's been victimized by the Jews. So I don't play the victim card, and I won't promote conspiracies unless, in fact, the conspiracy is by the dastardly Jews, and well, they've got it coming.
Yeah, Joe Rogan, of all the things to bring up, it wasn't until 10/7 that I realized that Jews controlled everything. What happened on 10/7? Were the Jews controlling everything when Hamas came in and killed 3,000 Jews?
Yeah, they controlled nothing. Now, there is a real problem when we're on this subject. There's a real problem with 10/7. And Israelis are beginning to scream because they know that Netanyahu worked them into a trap. And deep down, Israelis know now that it's checkmate and Israel as a independent Jewish state's done. There are no moves left. And that person to blame is not just Donald Trump, who betrayed them, who we told them was going to betray them 2 years ago, but also Netanyahu. And so now they want a thorough investigation of what happened on 10/7, because on 10/7, many things are apparent and nobody wants to talk about them. Mm-hmm. For example, there were the Shin Bet and the Mossad and the government itself in Israel had full copies of Operation Alaska Flood. They had the full pamphlet. They had it a month before the attack. They received a phone call from Egyptian leadership saying that it was going to occur days before it occurred. Very substantial numbers of the IDF personnel, lower ranking individuals that were along the fence line, told their superiors that there is evidence of a massive demonstration somehow and training for a mission that looks like it's going to try to breach the defenses here that's ongoing in the many days preceding 10/7. When 10/7 occurred at 6 o'clock in the morning, and they just ran bulldozers through the tank and cut the wall and started flooding in tennis shoes and walking into Israel. First wave was about 2,000. Second wave was 4 to 6 hours later with 2,000. And the third wave was 4 to 6 hours after that with 2,000. Israel didn't respond. Mm-hmm. They didn't launch the Apache helicopters. They didn't launch the A-10 gunships. They didn't roll any armored personnel carriers. They didn't bring in tanks. They didn't go to the border and make certain that no one was carried back as a captive into the border over a 12-hour period of time. Nothing. And it gets worse. They destroy the evidence of the crime. So they could never win the war of public opinion, because rather than promote and show pictures and evidence and have autopsy reports of what happened at the crime scene, they destroyed it all. They don't have it. The only thing we have is the GoPro cameras of the Islamic terrorists themselves who perpetrated it because they posted them online and the government couldn't confiscate it. But there's another problem, two of them, both of which I reported very early on. One was in the morning of 10/7. The reinforcements that should have been around the fence line in southern Israel near the border with Gaza had been withdrawn to support a religious ceremony that had nothing to do with the Torah. It's called Shimkat Torah, but it has nothing to do with the Torah. It's another day that the rabbis add to Sukkah, and they wanted to celebrate it, taunting the Fakistinians, so they did so up in Judea and Samaria. And because they were going to taunt the make-believe Philistines, they brought Army Reserve units up there, IDF Reserve units up there to protect them, so they were hours and hours out of place. The morning of 10/7, nobody even bothered to awake Netanyahu, and when Netanyahu finally wanted to respond, he was precluded from doing so by the judiciary. The Shin Bet and the Mossad, who had copies of the plans, never said, this is Alaska flood, this is what they're doing. We need to get all manner of personnel near the fences because their goal is to bring as many Israeli hostages across that border because of the power of the hostages to control us. Mm-hmm. It was never discussed. And here's the worst part of all. There is considerable evidence that many of the 1,200 Israelis that died on that day were killed by the IDF in friendly fire. And it's part of a published IDF engagement book that if you are involved in something where it appears there's going to be hostages, killing an Israeli is better than allowing the Israeli to become a hostage. And so they don't want it published. And so it's a really, really sad situation. And then, of course, Israel never once acknowledges what was the real inspiration for 10/7. And it is a reenactment of what happened at Khabar 1,400 years ago, where Muhammad early in the morning attacked a Jewish farming community in Khabar, where he was the first time he used Allahu Akbar, and where he ravaged men and women and tortured them and enslaved the women. And murdered the men. It's the exact same situation. You can play this. This is part of that. And of course, what Israel, I'll just say one other thing, and that I think I'm the first to identify, is that when you read Sinwar's paperwork on all of this, and you witness what Qatar already had in place and had funded and across Europe and America, the entire purpose of the 10/7 Alaska flood attack was to taunt Israel into invading and destroying Gaza. And she still doesn't get it. They were taunted into attacking and destroying Gaza. And even before they entered Gaza, they were being called genocidal on American university campuses by the Marxists and throughout Europe and the marches in the street. So they already had all of this set up to demean Israel and demonize Israel even before they responded, because they knew they were taunted into this response. And by being played in this way, Israel was destroyed. And then when Iran wanted Israel to attack, and Iran now, I posted something, we'll maybe get to it later this morning, but Iran posted a Arachi, who is a really smooth-talking diplomat. And he acknowledged that the purpose of the MOU was to put Israel and the United States at odds with each other, so that the United States, to get the deal to end the war, would have to betray Israel. And he acknowledged how, if Trump can't control his animals, then we'll teach them a lesson. And so what he acknowledged is that I'm right, that the whole enriching of uranium and the funding of Hezbollah was specifically because Iran wanted the United States and Israel to attack. And we can go into the reasons for that, but very simply, the government was exceedingly unpopular, and this was the best way for them to galvanize support. And they knew that they had the wherewithal not only to withstand the assault, but by their response, they would become the hegemon of the region. And it played out exactly that way. So Israel wasn't just played once, they were played twice by Muslims. You can play this one.
This is a video from a recent protest in Gaza, where you can hear people calling for another October 7th massacre on Israeli civilians. Almost 3 years after the October 7th massacre, there are still people who praise what happened and openly call for it to happen again. This is why the IDF continues to operate against Hamas, to dismantle its terror capabilities, protect Israeli civilians, and ensure that another October 7th massacre will never happen again. Listen carefully.
You got played.
I want to go a little further here. Let me.
Okay.
Oh, there we go.
You got played. You got played. By invading and destroying Gaza, you destroyed Israel. The whole world turned on Israel because of what you did in Gaza. And literally, the whole purpose of October 7th was to get you to do that, and was to get you to try to take out Hamas. So when you see this and you realize this is a recent protest, that means that you are now insane to request what you're requesting. You want to continue a strategy that has turned the world against you and has not eliminated Hamas. And you want to continue it. That's insane. And you're not willing to acknowledge that that strategy is what caused the world to view Israel as the least desirable country in the world. And on top of all that, after all of this, you can't tie this to Khabar. You can't tie this to Muhammad and Islam, to the Quran and Hadith. And you don't recognize that the enemy is not Hamas, they're just a symptom. That the problem is Islam, and that you can't beat and defeat an enemy like this with bullets and bombs. You'll make it worse. And you're still not cognizant of the fact that if you wanted to render Al-Aqsa flood to be a negative result as opposed to a positive result, the thing you should have attacked was Al-Aqsa Mosque. You should have razed it to the ground. You had given the perfect opportunity and you didn't do it. To have this scheme by an Islamic organization called Al-Aqsa Flood, which is a Quranic slogan, take out Al-Aqsa Mosque to raise it to the ground as a consequence of what they did, would have turned the whole world upside down in terms of an understanding of just how demonic the claims Muhammad made about Al-Aqsa. The wild donk-ass ride to Jerusalem after
let's talk about why that's there.
A pedophilia and satanic verses. Muhammad got caught admitting that he spoke for Satan, that he admitted that Allah was just one of a bunch of gods and goddesses, and then he tried to contradict that with saying, would all of Allah's messengers speak for Satan? And then he was in bed with a 6-year-old girl, and to try to clear up the whole mess, he imagined that a winged ass came to take him from the Kaaba to Jerusalem, because you couldn't get to Allah by way of the Kaaba. You had to go to Jerusalem. And he imagined that he rode this donk ass to Jerusalem, and then he met in the temple that he didn't know had been destroyed 600 years earlier. And by the way, he didn't even know the name of the town, the city. And then he said he met with a bunch of Jewish bigwigs, all of whom had deceased centuries and millennia previous. And then when he claims he went on this journey, that his donkey mule jumped up to go visit Allah, and en route to Allah was hell. And hell was filled with women being hung by their breasts from meat hooks. So how do you like the story so far? Because that's the story. And it's what I'm telling you is exactly how it happened. And it gets worse from there. So this is a total embarrassment to Muslims. And you could have brought that to the world's attention by demolishing Al-Aqsa Mosque and taking down the Dome of the Rock along with it. That would have shown some courage. That would have been the proper use of the IDF. Take the bulldozer that plowed through your fence. Take that same bulldozer and use that bulldozer to take down both of those structures.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. They would rather pound their shields and rattle their sabers than take decisive action like that. In the meantime, the armies are forming. We're into the time of trolls. It's not going to get any better.
It's also interesting. This reads, "Oh, Jews." Muslims know they're not Jews. Jews are the ones who don't know they're not Jews. They're called Yahud. And they're called Yahud because rabbis sold them Talmud stories, and in the Talmud, they're referred to as Yahud. The first Jew did not exist until the 17th century. And all Jew is this terrible lie that removes Yahweh's name from his people. So it's a divorce declaration of now Jews against Yahweh. That's what happened. That's how they became Jews. And they're not saying Jews, they're saying Yahud. What a crime.
It's been impossible to erase the damage that the protocols of the elders of Zion has done. That's still out there, and a lot of people are still looking at that.
Christian New Testament. It's impossible to erase the damage that the Christian New Testament has done.
I'm with Kevin on this. I'm with Kevin on this. Well, there are, and I've written about it. There's lots of people that still believe that the Protocols of the Elders of Zion is a real book, real history. When in fact it's a paraphrase of a French novel where it was little devils that were meeting, and it had all to do with European aristocracy. It had nothing to do with Jews, and it was just had the names replaced. It's a fraud of the worst order, and it's so easy to demonstrate that it's a fraud of the worst order. It's astonishing that people are still stupid enough to believe it, but they are. Blame the Jews is the world's favorite conspiracy. But the basis of blame the Jew conspiracy is Paul. And what Paul's pal Luke had to the words he shoved in Peter's mouth, where they both claimed that Jews killed their God. And, bottom line is, God's not a man. God cannot become a man. God cannot be killed. And Jews never crucified anyone. The whole thing is a stupid lie, but that stupid lie is the basis for anti-Semitism and the blame the Jew conspiracy. I had a post here. We probably won't get to it today. I hope I can maybe reprise it for tomorrow if we don't. My favorite, my least favorite influencer, the man that I keep on saying has just lost it. He sets himself up in a cathedral-like setting, and he's got a bunch of clerics around him, but he is in the center of this vaulted ceiling cathedral setting. And he's reading the story that's attributed to the myth of Jesus, talking about the person who was given all the opportunity in the world, but they returned nothing of value, and the person that was given nothing, and they tried to deliver something. And the purpose of the story is to demean the Jews and to say, well, the Jews were given the opportunity and they were going to get the inheritance as a result. But because the Jews plotted to kill the Christian God, it was taken from them. And that story is used. It's probably the number one story that is used to justify demonizing Jews and justifying the replacement theology of the God of the Old Testament lied when he said that the Jews were the promised people and the chosen people, and that he was returning on their behalf. He just is a liar, but it's okay. We have a replacement God anyway. And the replacement God said all of this, that the Jews were going to be bypassed and all the promises given to the Jews were going to be given to the Christians. Of course, no one bothered to say, well, if the God lied about giving the promises to the Jews, and now what do you think the odds are that he's not lying to you about giving these promises to the Christians? But the bottom line is the story that he's reading, Jordan Peterson's not smart enough, not honest enough to know that story doesn't appear in any first, second, third, or even early fourth manuscript. And that story first appears in Vaticanus and Sinaiticus, both of which were written by Eusebius at the command of Constantine. And the purpose was, we're going to make this religion anti-Semitic. And so he's reading a story that was written in the 4th century, specifically to demean Jews by Imperial Rome.
Yeah. Yeah, that was the point. That I wanted to roll to this point in the clip, and you kind of touched on it with Jews. But what they are saying here is Khaybar, Yahowah, right? I mean, there is nothing whatsoever to do with the word October 7th will return. I mean,
yeah, let's play it again.
Carefully. This is a video.
Yeah, you're right. It's Khaybar, Yahud. So they're calling Jews Yahud, and it's Khaybar. And the reason they're calling it Khaybar is that they recognize something that Jews still do not know. And I have done a series of these programs, early vlogs, on the story of Khabar, where I have read every document that exists that explains what happened at Khabar. And I have, you go to yadayah.com and you go to the Goddamn Religion series. There's 5 books. I think it's in the 4th volume. It's not the 4th, it's the 3rd, is the story of Khabar. And the story of Khabar is so damn important. Muhammad had perpetrated genocide and apartheid on the 30,000 Jews that were in Yathrib, which is today's Medina. He went to Yathrib, Medina, following the embarrassment of the Knight's Journey, this trip to Al-Aqsa Mosque that, of course, didn't exist, to the temple that didn't exist, on the winged ass that didn't exist, because of his satanic verses, because of his incorporating Alat, Aluza, and Manat, all goddesses, into the Quran and into the Islamic religion. And he was laughed out of town. And when he was laughed out of town, he begged other people to take him in. He was a laughing stock. And he found 20 Arabs from Yathrib, which was 3/4 a Jewish, it was the highest concentration of Jews, probably the most prosperous city in Arabia at the time. And he found 20 Jews there that had heard the rabbis speak of this coming Messiah, which is, of course, a rabbinical lie. And this was, around 522 CE. And they had heard about this coming Messiah, and so when Muhammad met with them, he said, "Will you take me in?" And I said, "Well, what's involved in this?" He says, "Well, I'm a messenger of God." And he said, "Oh, you sound like you might be that Messiah guy that the rabbis keep on saying they're looking for." Yeah, he says, "That's me. I'm the Messiah guy." Yeah, that's me. I'm the Messiah guy. And they said, "Well, what's in it for us, Messiah guy?" "Well, we'll bring you to the Jews. They'd love to see you as you're the Messiah guy." And he says, "Well, we have this religion here. which is really cool because you're going to become terrorists and mass murderers and rapists. And my God approves all of these things. And so what we're going to do is we're going to go rob people, starting with my own family, because I don't like them very much because they laughed me out of town.
Mhm.
We'll rob my own family, and then we're going to rob the Jews. The Messiah, they're not going to like this version of the Messiah very much, but what do you care? We're going to rob the Jews, and they've got a lot of things, you know, because you came from Yathrib, you know how wealthy they are. We're going to rob the Jews, and then we're going to rob everybody else in Arabia. In fact, we're going to pledge to wage war against all mankind. And the deal is here, you get to keep 80% of what you steal. And my God's going to authorize you stealing. He's going to say stealing is lawful and good. And you're going to go enslave people, and you get to turn women into sex slaves. How about that for fun? And you get to rape them. And then in my religion, all women are property of men. You can beat them up, you can starve them, you can do whatever you want. Many wives as you want, many girlfriends you want. You really, it's quite a deal here. And I'm going to authorize all of that. You just have to give me 20% of the cut, and we'll have a great time. You know, we'll be barbarians. The Pledge of Akbar. That's the story. And he went to Yathrib, and he systematically annihilated the Jews, perpetrated apartheid on them, perpetrated genocide on them, butchered them. Mm-hmm. And the few Jews that he exiled and robbed before he annihilated them, it goes right back to Adolf Hitler, the first Jews he exiled and robbed before he began to annihilate them. They went to Khabar, and they did the same thing in Khabar they were doing in Yathrib, which is they were date farmers. And they had no weapons of war other than the
pruning hooks,
gardening utensils. Mm-hmm. And so one morning, guess who was there? And it wasn't just there randomly. Khabar. Read your damn Quran. Read the Hadith. You know why Muhammad was at Khabar? Yahud? Because he had just gone the day before down to Kaabaville. I use Kaabaville as opposed to Mecca because Mecca didn't exist at the time. It was Petra. He was there and outside the town, but he got cold feet. He was talking with a representative of his own family, and he reminded him, he said, the last time you were here, we were left out of town, and now you want to bring your new followers here into town, and everyone's going to tell the story about how, you know, you were a pedophile, you were a rapist, you were a demon-possessed liar, and you spoke for Satan by your own admission, and you had 3 goddesses of the Kaaba incorporated into your religion, and your excuse was a donkey ride to a city whose name you didn't know, and to a temple that didn't exist, to a mosque that didn't exist, and you had to travel through hell to get to the Islamic heaven. Do you want us to tell that story? How do you think you're going to respond to your followers this time? Muhammad got cold feet. He's leading a bunch of militants who were there for rape and plunder and murder and slavery and rape. And I know you reported rape, but I like rape. Wasn't that the blazing line saddle? The line that my wife's going to be so mad at me for repeating. I know that's a disgusting line, but you know, the blazing saddles was done at a time that such things were considered funny. And I know rape is not funny, but you know, Islam's not funny either. So if I can make some humor in the midst of it, I'm going to try.
Right.
His goons all turned on him. They said, "Wait a minute, this is not fair. You told us we were going to come and we're going to conquer this place. That we were going to make lots of money. We were going to have our slave girls. We were going to have our booty. And now you're going away, and we don't get to kill anybody. We don't get to enslave anybody. We don't get to rape anybody. This is not going to work, pal. That's not what we signed up for." And so Muhammad's really on his wit's end, because he had just signed an agreement, just like Trump, a memorandum of understanding, where he said, I would not terrorize my own people. I wouldn't rape them. I wouldn't kidnap them for ransom for 10 years. In other words, I won't be a Muslim for 10 years. Mm-hmm. And he even said that he wasn't the messenger of Allah. In fact, he even said there was no Allah. And so he signed all of this, a defeatist, and his people are revolting against him. So he needs easy prey. Khabar was easy prey. He immediately left Hudabayah, which is where he was, and he signed that document. He went directly to Khabar. They arrived in the morning, and in the morning when they Yahud of Khabar were coming out to tend their fields, their olive orchards. Muhammad was yelling Allahu Akbar. And over the next week, every Jew in Khabar was essentially either murdered, raped, enslaved, many tortured. That's what happened. That's the basis of Islam. That's the Treaty of Hudaybiyah. And it's chronicled in the Quran. And the treaty that Muhammad welched on, that he went and he didn't even last a day, the 9th surah of the Quran says any treaty between a Muslim and a non-Muslim is not binding on the Muslim. Now, didn't you think that would be rather important for this Jewish IDF woman to know that they're not saying, oh, Jews, October 7 will return, that they're saying, oh, Yahud, Khabar, Yahud, and that it's purely Islamic, that this is a reenactment of a raid against a farming community, a la the kibbutzim, early in the morning screaming Allahu Akbar, with women enslaved, taken for ransom, men murdered, people tortured, all in the name of Muhammad and Islam. It is the same thing, and they can't put those things together. Now, if you want proof, go to yada.com, read Goddamn Religion. Every nuance of this is documented, and from the oldest Islamic sources.
Yeah, it was a missed opportunity in my, in my view. That's just to be right there and to try to, talk about. Yeah, absolutely. I was just.
A woman dressed like, the woman dressed like she's a religious Jew, like she's Orthodox, and she's replacing Jesus's name, which is a person who never lived, with giving him the name Yeshua, which means to cry in Hebrew, and is trying to mix Judaism and Christianity. And what I'm here to tell you is that, and she's got our little Talmud books all around her. You want to mix Judaism and Christianity. You don't create something that's better. You create something that's worse. And so that kind of lie has caused many, many people to lose their way. And so I'm going to tell you that you might as well remove the scarf. You might as well step away from the Talmudic books behind you. You're dead ass wrong. Jesus never existed. And to give the lie a different name is to lie on top of a lie. Stop it.
Stop it.
Just stop it.
Don't call me Shirley.
Okay, just for just a moment of levity. Well, can we play this just for a moment of levity?
Absolutely. I'm a big airplane fan.
Okay.
Can you fly this plane and land it?
Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
Doctor, I've checked everyone. Mr. Stryker's the only one.
What flying experience have you had?
Oh, I flew single-engine fighters in the Air Force, but this plane has 4 engines. It's an entirely different kind of flying altogether.
It's an entirely different kind of flying. Can you fly this plane?
What's your Victor Vector? Yeah, what's your drinking problem? What's your Victor Vector? So many. This is. It's probably not quite as rough as Life of Brian or Blazing Saddles in terms of it's just silly or the Holy Grail one in terms of just silliness.
Right.
But it's damn close. And I know it's not politically correct or anything else, but oh my goodness. Whatever happened to real humor? We haven't done anything really funny in so long.
And they're even remaking the trying to remake the humorous ones. Like, I mean, you go to Blazing Saddles, Mel Brooks, an absolute genius, right? He does Spaceballs, which is the Star Wars takeoff on that, and they're trying to remake Spaceballs 2. You know, instead of writing something completely different on their own. I mean, they're completely trying to relive and remarket these old ideas. You know, because they got nothing.
Yeah, I'd love to see The Life of Brian remade. You know, they made some of these things on budgets that were $1 or $2 million, and they were actually funded by the actors themselves who believed in the project because no studio would take it because people were so damn uptight. That's why. You know, I know the Blazing Saddles line irritates a lot of women because they say it's not funny. But the fact is that we've become so uptight that it just bugs me that that sarcasm and humor today is so castrated. And we just don't have it in us to poor Elia. Can you imagine when he tries some of his sarcasm and potty talk on an audience today? I mean, they're going to try to lynch him.
Right. Yeah. I don't think he's going to care. I don't think he's going to have one bit. What is this politically incorrect thing?
I don't know. You know, Elia is a little different than most people make him out to be. He's not the tough guy. He's not the tough guy. He was funny guy. You know, what's wrong with your God? Well, is he? I know he's in the crapper. He'll take a poop, and once he's finished taking a poop, he'll come back out. Or, you know, I know your guy's really old, and he's probably taking a nap. It's high noon. You would think he'd be up from his nap already, but yeah, we can hang here a little longer if you want. I mean, it's pretty biting humor, but you know, you read the whole story of Elia. He does one thing that's very brave. He goes before the king and the queen, and he announces that it's going to be 7 years of no rain on the land, and it's because you're a piece of shit. Oh, by the way, that I'm speaking here for Yahowah. And then the king is guarded, and he walks right past all the guards and all the weapons and does it. And then he leaves, and you know, God has him hide out in 2 different places. And ultimately, you know, he runs away and hides under a tree and asks God to kill him. And it's not as bold as, in fact, it's just other than Boaz. And the story of Boaz, when it's told, he's actually a pretty charming and romantic fellow. And it was really Ruth who brought it to his attention that he was the Redeemer. And that he was the guy that was going to pay the price to redeem. But there really aren't a lot of examples. You know, we always want to, because of Charleston Heston's role on Moses, we want to present Moses as this, hear me, Moses, I hear me roar. But he wasn't. He was constantly doing a face plant. He told God to kill him. He condemned God before they left Israel and said, you know, you're a total failure. I want out of this deal. You know, you look at Dode for most of his life, he was on the wrong side of decisions. Only the last 10 years that he came around, and then of course in his other lives he became pretty spectacular. In fact, not pretty, really spectacular. You know, but you know, look at Abraham and Jacob. They're both misfits, land of misfit toys. So it's just so unusual to have a real standout guy that says, I don't really give a crap what you think. I'm here to do a job. We're going to get the job done. And you either get out of the way or I'm going to run you over. Happen very often.
Well, and it's tough to keep that amount of intensity all the time, too. I mean, trying to be bold and shazak and the right every time in the right place in the right, you know, I mean, that's, dude, batting 100 out of 100. Batting an average is 300 and you're doing great. You know, batting 100 all the time, 1,000 all the time. It's like
not in the role of Yahweh's fixer. You have to perform like Noach. You have to perform like Ethan Hajraki. You don't get do-overs. You don't get, you're going to have the bags under your eyes, because this is a 14-hour-a-day gig, and you're going to have to sleep at night, because you're going to have to get up and ready to go the next morning, and you're going to do it 7 days a week, and you are never going to say, I mean, you might say occasionally, okay, God, that's enough responsibility. You keep on adding responsibility, we're going to have a real problem here. It's too big a burden for any man to carry. And God says, who's to decide how much you can carry? Maybe I know you better than you know you. And it's another, and it's another, and it's another. And he fully expects that you're going to bear whatever he's going to give you. And that there is, now, there's only one role like that. And he has a woman that he has dragged through time with him. But there's only one role like that. And it's interesting that the role is not the main character. He's the guy that supports the main character.
The young one.
The Khatan. Young man.
Khatan Mayor.
Yeah, I think this is interesting. The cavalry. First of all, I think that the bravado, and I don't know if they really had wings like this, but they were alleged to. But the bravado of the largest cavalry to ever march, and this is the Battle of Tours. It's the one that changed finally the history of the Islamic advance. But from 622 to 1683. Over 1,000 years, Islam was the most murderous, genocidal, colonial, oppressive, destructive force on earth. So it's just something to keep in mind. It was 1,000 years of oppression. It ended, it didn't end for the people they had oppressed. They would continue to oppress them even to this day. But for expanding their realm of subjugation and oppression, it ended here in 1683. But this is the most damaging, demeaning, destructive, and deadly dogma ever conceived by humankind. Not the fellows with the cavalry with the wings. They opposed them. But if not for this cavalry charge, Europe would probably be Islamic.
Absolutely.
It's just a shame that people, Marxists and Muslims today, are condemning Jews for being colonialists, and when the truth is exactly the opposite. They haven't colonialized any place at any time. And the Muslims have done nothing but impose colonial dictates, and they make the British look like buffoons by comparison. I mean, it's a bloodbath with Islam. It's convert or die. And if you don't want to convert, and we think that we want you to live, then you have Domini status. It's an apartheid regime, and you have to give up all property ownership, and you pay a tax that funds our oppression of you. It's a horrid, horrid religion, and this is the consequence of 1,000 years of blood. Yeah, the world doesn't want to hold the religion accountable. Even Israel can't hold them accountable.
And in all this time, their message hasn't changed. In America, every time there's a new president is elected, you get a new message. But in Islam, they're doing the same thing they've been doing ever since the beginning.
And the reason, of course, is because of Allah and Muhammad. Islam can't change. Islam, I mean, the Quran even itself says it cannot change. Allah is demonic. Muhammad was the most perverted, murderous thug who ever lived. And Allah is the carbon copy of Muhammad. The Quran is the worst book ever written. It's just a damn shame that people don't read it or go to Prophet of Doom. It was Prophet of Doom, now Goddamn Religion. Read the 5 volumes of Goddamn Religion. It's the most comprehensive presentation, best documented presentation of Islam ever written. It takes the Quran the first time ever, reorders it chronologically, sets it into Muhammad's life using the biographical hadith collections of Tabari and Bukhari, which are more credible actually than the Quran because they're sourced. The sources of them are documented, where in the Quran they're not. And it's the same message, the same people. And I use the hadith, the Ishaqs and Tabaris, to reorder the Quran chronologically and set in the context of Muhammad's life. And 4,200 pages of that. And by the time you're done, there's nothing left of Islam. It's completely eviscerated. And you understand exactly why they're terrorists and why they continue to scream Allahu Akbar as they commit these crimes. I mean, the last 25 years, Muslims have perpetrated 50,000 terrorist acts, and they confess to every one of them screaming Allahu Akbar, and nobody wants to blame the religion. How can you be that stupid, people?
Yeah. I was just looking through my notes here, trying to figure out what chapter we're going to start on Luminaries. We're turning the page and starting new chapters in Luminaries.
We are,
right?
We are starting a new chapter of Luminaries. We're still in the story. Story of Noach. We're now on Towrah, which is not an ark; it's a vessel of insights for the harvest, and it's going to be exciting to review what God had to say and how they work together, and then we're going to move to the one talkie that Noach has. He only has, for all of the things that he does, he's only a listener and a doer. Until the very last episode that is directly attributed to him. And he is quite a prophetic pronouncement regarding his three sons. And then after that, we're going to follow Noach and his son through the next 300 and I think it's 60 days of 360 years of his life. Through the meeting that he and his son, who is Shem, who is actually Dode, have with accompanying Yahowah to Abraham to announce the arrival of Yishak. And then the same two guys, father and son, Noach and Shem, are the two that go down to Sodom. And they retrieve Lot, and they're the ones that, the townspeople are trying to get at. It's Noach and his son Shem. And we finally see their swan song at the confirmation of the covenant in 1968 BCE, year 2000 Yah. They're the two fellas that accompany Abraham and Yishak to Mount Moriah. And so that's the next part of the story. And then we are going to look at the most interesting 6 minutes in the Torah with the birth of Moshe and all the things surrounding that, because it's the same cast of characters. Mm-hmm. And from there, we're going to begin the story of Ruth. I'm within, I think, 2 statements of finishing the 4th chapter in terms of translation. I've written about a third of the commentary on it, but the end of it is just riveting. Oh my goodness. It tells Israel everything they needed to know. Mm-hmm. It's astonishing the world has missed what is contained in that book of Ruth. It's the story of stories. It's the answer to every question. So I haven't published, as you've seen. Everybody gave me the green light on the 3rd chapter, said it's not too racy. It is pretty racy, but it's evidently, and everybody agreed that that's part of the story. It's the naked Nabis, exposed, totally exposed. The whole story is exposed in these 2 individuals, and the 4th chapter is just, if you know how Hebrew was written and who the players are, and you see the way that Boaz manipulated his audience and the way that his audience then responded to him, and the way they were talking about this Redeemer and what is actually required of a Redeemer, which is, that's the toughest job there is. Got to pay the price.
Pay the price.
The Redeemer pays the price. So you really got to know. And of course, Boaz paid quite the price for Ruth. He had to buy huge swaths of land to acquire Ruth. But that was his own scheme because he tossed Ruth in with the land, and there was no reason to do that other than he thought it would be a fun idea to do it. It's just a marvelous story. And you get back into the end of it as to who the conclusion in the first chapter is that Naomi, she represents the embitterness of Israel. Mm-hmm. And it is the Savior that is delivered to Naomi. A son is born, a child is given to Naomi to restore her soul. And it's Naomi represents Israel. And so the whole thing is prophetic of what we read in Yeshaya chapter 9 and of what we read in 2 Samuel and throughout the Mizmor. The whole story is told right there. And then you look at the generations that lead up to Boaz and who Boaz is and how Boaz is going to be forever remembered, and his name throughout Israel and throughout time. Boaz is the only name on the temple. Yahweh's name's not even in the temple. Mm-hmm. There's a name on the north and one on the south columns, but the name on the south column is a title. It's not a name. The title applies to Dod. There's only one name, and it's not even Yahweh's name. Yahweh didn't have his name written on his own home for the covenant. There's only one name there, and it's Boaz's. And you try to figure out, what is Boaz? Get that distinction. And it may be because, well, it's pretty tough to be Shazak all the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
To be Gabor all the time. And so God's way of saying, I recognize he did it. And I wouldn't be surprised if it appears again. I actually wouldn't be surprised.
I got to tell you, I'm really liking this Luminary series. I mean, it's just enthralling. I've just been pulled into it. It's just so Tob, so nourishing. It's
it is. And it's it starts with the first prophecy in the Torah, and it follows that first prophecy all the way through the end of the book, and then it gets to end with the greatest celebration. Because in the middle of it, we follow the sun and the moon all the way through all the prophets, right to the end times. But then we follow the many lives of the Greater and Lesser Luminaries, and the most interesting expression of their lives is in the story of Ruth and Boaz. And boy, is it ever tasty! I mean, this story is so delicious and beautifully, beautifully written. Dude could write. That's for darn sure. Mm-hmm. He could weave a story. Yeah, and one of these days I'm going to go back and retranslate all of the proverbs, the mashal. Mm-hmm. Now that we know who wrote them and why they were written, my guess is we're going to find a similar interest in having every word be a clue that is another facet on a diamond that reflects a brilliant insight. And boy, that is the way. Every time you translate a word in the story of Ruth, you're just saying, "Oh my goodness, I could write books just on this one word and how it was used right here and what it means." And finally, in the fourth chapter, how the Savior is being delivered to Israel.
Right.
This is the son who was given. This is the child who was born, and they're born through Boaz. Now, one of the things I just learned, and I must have been sloppy previously, but certainly didn't intend to make the mistake. But I'd always translated Yishe, Dod's disgusting father, as stand out and be noticed. But that's not the meaning of the name. It's from Yishe. Yeesh.
My man.
It's from Yeesh, with a yod at the end of it. Mm-hmm. You know what it means? What Yeesh means?
My man. Man.
Yeesh means
no Yeesh.
No, Yeesh means no. It's not that Yeesh. It sounds the same, but it's not. It's a verb Yeesh, not the Yeesh man. It means am, and it's suffixed with I.
Am
named Dod's father, I am.
I am.
You know anybody that calls themselves I am?
Haya?
Yahowah.
Yeah.
Yahowah
Haya.
introduces himself as I am.
Mm-hmm.
Yishay's name is I am. Dod's father's name is I am.
Oh goodness! Right, yeah. Firstborn.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Talk about reinforcing things.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd always thought that the child of Ruth and Boaz was Obed. And we see Obed again as Obed Edom, and then the man from Edom. But it's not. It's close, but it's not. It's Obed with a wah in it. And Obed with a wah in it is a very different name. It still conveys work and service, but it is one who is repeatedly deployed to serve, and to serve in a very specific way. It is the coolest name ever. And as soon as Ruth conceives this child, Obed, you know what's the first thing she does with the child? She gives the child to Naomi, who is Israel. And then all of Israel acknowledges this is the savior of your soul. It's just delicious the way the whole thing is presented. How in the world did 50 generations of rabbis miss this?
Right.
Yeah, wait till you see the series of names and what they mean. It's just it's beautiful. All right, gentlemen, go ahead. If you have anything to add, please. Otherwise, we'll.
I was just going to say, I'm waiting to see my 4th chapter. I will. We kind of get a little. Peek,
yes.
So it's...
And I haven't shared the 3rd chapter in the site yet. It was interesting that the 2nd chapter, even though I thought it was pretty marvelous, I thought the 1st and 2nd chapters were really great of that story. There's almost no comment in the chat. And that's fine. Most of the comments are on the shows that folks are doing, and I think that's great. Roger, yours is terrific, and there's 4 or 5 others that are really, really good, and we wanted everybody to support those and pay attention to them. But in the midst of all that, other than the people I sent the chapter to by email, like you read it, and the most interesting read of it was Mariah, her comments as a woman's point of view, and it was just delicious. And Leah had her tears to shed on it and laughter, and did Rich and Perry and you, Kevin, and so there's a lot in it that the core group responded to, but in terms of just the listeners and the chat, there was almost no feedback. And I said, well, maybe I'm making a mistake here by presenting it early, and we'll just wait until the whole book is published. But so I'll think about it anyway. I won't finish chapter 4 commentary probably until sometime on Saturday. Is probably when I'll get that done. And then I've got to go back and edit the book, and then I've got to edit the other books, and I've still got to add the superscripts to 2 of them, and there's still a lot of work, and it's about 2,000 pages all total, and I think I need to add 1 more chapter to Coming Home 4, so that it's a little closer to 500 pages. The other one's 650 and 725, so a little more work to do. But we're going to have 3 new books, and then I'm committed now to rewriting Written in Stone, so that we have a short book on the 10 statements that Yahowah etched in stone. I think it's time to go back and revisit those. And all the while, Joe is now finishing the talkies, and really what we have to do is to implement an avatar so that we can also display them in places like YouTube and the social media channels. They're going to be a lot better with avatars there. On our own website, the avatar is not really necessary because of the fact that you have the page turners and the highlighted text of the page that is being read. But I will tell you, the text-to-speech voice is really good. and the guest speakers that read things like the Christian New Testament are hilarious. So it's really, really well done. But again, even there, we're getting very little feedback from our own community, and you wonder why. It's the best thing I've ever seen to our site. So I don't know if we're overstressing, overworking our community, but we're and maybe it's a realization that we have a core team, and it's appropriate to keep the core team up to speed and educated and inspired, and we'll can't set expectations for everybody else that exceed what they're capable of doing at this time. So we'll see how it all plays out. But anyway, that's where we are on these projects.
Well, I'd just like to say towards the end here that over the years, I've seen a lot of changes in Yahowah and translations, and we're entering a time now. We've already entered it, where the sites and translations are maturing to the point where we're really getting the story that's meant to be told.
Yeah, and
it's so exciting for me. I mean, it's just I'm relishing as it's coming out, and the insights are they're just amazing. And the Teba is just going to be fantastic. I just know it is.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you,
Roger.
Thank
you, Kevin, Rich, Perry. There are, and even some of the younger guys right now. I mean, Mark's come a long way. John is another one's come a long way. Will has been spectacular. You look at Mariah and her husband and how well that they're doing, and they Call Your Next Witness with Shannon and Matt, also wonderful. That whole YA2 Z team is spectacular. We're really, and if I've left out somebody's name, I'm sorry. And I'm reading some of the very mature comments. Like Doe's written some really outstanding things recently. So have you, Roger. We have a core group that is truly remarkable. I mean, just the right team at the right time, the right level of maturity, and everybody is rowing at the same pace, at the same effort, in the same direction. And the pace that we are learning and growing and beginning to see the whole picture of God fall into place, so that we know exactly who we are and where we sit in the middle of this, and where God is going with this story and how that story is going to develop. It is the most exciting thing you could ever possibly want. You know, I look at, I've been telling the guys here for some time that I've never been one to ask for a sign. In fact, in any of the deployments I've had, I've never asked God for a sign. And I didn't ask God for a sign when he approached me this time. And even when the first thing he asked me to do was something no one had ever survived. And yet what we have come across with the sign of the Mayoreth, the Greater and Lesser Luminaries, and all of the signs that were presented along the way in that story. And then the signs of the last word picture and how we developed that. It's God says, I know you didn't ask for a sign, but you won't mind me if I give you 1,000 of them, would you? And so he's provided signs that are so unbelievably reassuring. You read every word of Ruth, and it is a sign of, yeah, this is who you are. Thank you for doing what you've done. It's transformative, and it's appreciated. And so, yeah, the whole thing is the Luminaries is the sign that God is revealing to us, and it's the sign that is woven through his whole story. That's why it's the first prophecy. So, Roger, I'm with you.
For us.
Oh, pardon?
The signs are for us.
The signs are for us.
The general public who's not paying attention and won't ever contemplate or grasp what's happening.
It's true. The signs are so far beyond them. To hear like this Jordan Peterson, who has this huge audience and a fairly young audience that is spouting all this religious rubbish. And here you have a team of people that know the truth, can prove the truth, and are speaking directly for God at this time and know exactly where we are in his timeline and what's going to happen over the next 7 years. And very few people listen. Doesn't change our zeal for doing the job. We're here to complete this mission, and we're going to do so, and we're doing it to God's satisfaction. It's just that truth is very, very unpopular. God's very unpopular.
Yes.
But he is not unpopular with us, nor is truth. So he's found a place where it resonates, and that pleases him no end. All right, Roger, thank you. Perfect timing for your participation today. What a great story to start this show with. It's transformational of our world. But everybody would probably yawn at it and won't understand why it's important. I'm glad Leah brought it to me this morning. I stand corrected that it was exactly as it's reported. And Kevin, always wonderful to have you as a co-host of the show. And Rich and his pal, Wookie, are the controls on the far side. Great to have you participate. We'll this afternoon with another episode of Luminaries. It looks like we're about to fade out and our stream is not, so timing is good. Good day.
Hey there, thanks for tuning in. That was Fetch. Gotta run now. Catch y'all on our next podcast.